And so it's really just taking control and saying, I am going to own the outcome in my life, regardless of what's happening. Because if you ask any really successful individual, financially or in business or in other areas of life, it's not the president that has caused them to be successful. It's not the economy. It's not like what's happening in their community. It's really how they responded to situations in life. And so I think just taking complete ownership is an important key.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? Welcome, Shoney. I'm Colter Hansen. This is Shoney Ivens. Shoney and I met a few months ago is all, and we've connected and touched base a couple of times. And anyways, we wanted to reconnect. We're both focused on some really cool things, we think. And Shoney was just telling me about a few things that he's focused on with his team. But first of all, Shoney, like, what are you focused on right now with your team? Who is your team, and what are you doing?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. It's interesting as I've stepped in, kind of grown in business, I've started to realize that people have two lives. Typically they have their home life and then they have their work life. And I've realized that those two things really are connected. And so mostly what we're working on with our team is helping people to live abundantly. And that means they're focused on their life, their health, their wealth building, which is a whole different dynamic that we're bringing into the conversation, and then business, right? How do they actually execute at a high level in the workspace? And so, it's been a fun kind of journey for sure.
Awesome. Well, Shoney and I have been involved in two very different events, both focused on success and, specifically, like mindset and creating that success that we want for ourselves personally. And I love how you're talking about personal and professional. They're crossing over a lot, right?
Totally.
And I think in the constant pursuit of balance, that's something that people are always asking for. Like, how do I balance all of the things that are demanding of my time and my energy and my resources, and do I have enough of any one of those things to be able to spread it across the things that are demanding of me? And so tell us what you learned from your event today that helped, that's helping you in that regard.
Yeah, I think part of it is realizing, I think balance is actually maybe not the best approach. Most people try to say, I'm going to balance all these things that I've got in life, and the challenge is that can be really tough. And I think a good way to look at it is more of both intentionality, being very intentional about the areas of life that you want to focus on, that you want to improve and grow in, and also realizing that life has seasons, right? Meaning that there might be some times where it is spring season and you've got to consistently plant seeds to know that you're going to be able to reap a harvest come fall. And that's kind of my philosophy on when it comes to the hustle kind of perspective, is sometimes you actually have to put other things on the back burner intentionally, right? And be able to focus on either developing skill sets or building structure into your life, your business, whatever it may be. And then sometimes health is the season that you need to focus on, right? And so I think it's just being very intentional about what's important to me. And that's where you've got to look really further, long term, what do I want life to look like 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, and then kind of reverse engineer it and say, okay, well, what would I have to do right now for that to be a reality? And so just being aware that there are seasons of life that we kind of go through, even throughout the year, right? Or economically, right now, we're seeing some interesting things happen in the world, and so sometimes more people have to step into more of I've got to go out and do double the energy or work to get a similar result to what I was getting in 2020, 2021, where things came easy, right? And that's not the same season right now. So I think it's just being aware of what is it that's important, what season am I in, and I'm going to be intentional about investing into these core areas of life, whatever those are. That's important.
No, I love how you talk in seasons of what these ebbs and flows would be. Is another comparison or analogy that I think could come is, what are we focused on the next 10 years?
Sure.
If we have an economy that crashes in the next 2 years, you have lots of economists that are saying that it is, lots that aren't. It seems that it creates a whole bunch of confusion. Consumers start to reel back. They're not spending as much. They're not spending as much maybe because of their own choice or because of the the costs and challenges that have come from the banking industry and from the Fed setting rates at a higher rate. And so we look at all of these different external barriers, and we make them internal to ourselves rather than figuring out, what am I doing in this season to make sure that I accomplish my dream 10 years from now?
Yeah.
And and so how is it that you, set your goals in a way that despite the ebbs and flows, that 10-year dream, that 5-year, 50-year dream, whatever that may be, how is it that you feel like you're treating those ebbs and flows and trying to overcome those barriers that you face in that meantime?
Well, I think part of it is just perspective, like kind of zooming out and realizing like history repeats itself. And so, of course, when people look at news or they're listening to their family members or friends, oftentimes people will talk about things that can bring fear, right? And the reality is, you still need to be aware of what's happening in the world, what's happening in the economy, what's happening in the country. But the reality is you still have to have the perspective of these things are cycles. They actually, if you look at history, you look back in time, they happen all the time, right? And it's no different. And so it's not the end of the world. It's kind of like the way our minds think is in the worst case scenario. But the reality is, if we zoom out, we say, okay, this is the environment that we're in, and we can't change what's happening externally, but we can change our approach. We can change what we're doing, our activities, our action steps. And so for me, it's saying, well, regardless of what's happening externally, I want to really focus on my health, I want to focus on my relationships, I want to focus on my wealth building. And so what activities do I need to do this year, this month, this quarter, this week, to make sure that I end up where I want to be 10 years from now? And so it's really just taking control and saying, I am going to own the outcome in my life, regardless of what's happening. Because if you ask any really successful individual, financially or in business or in other areas of life, it's not the president that has caused them to be successful. It's not the economy. It's not like what's happening in their community. It's really how they responded to situations in life. And so I think just taking complete ownership is an important key.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I look at, have you read the book Unbroken?
No.
Okay, so Louis Zamperini was an Olympic athlete, ended up being sent to I believe it was World War II, and he ends up being shot down in a B-52. Floats through the ocean for, and I want to say I'm pretty sure it's B-52, but he floats through the ocean for 40 some odd days, fighting off sharks, fighting off hunger and fatigue and going crazy. And one of the things that his brother had told him as he was running in competitions and preparing to be an Olympic athlete was, pain is temporary, glory is forever.
Yeah.
And that has hit home for me of like, I don't care what's in my way. I want to create something that is meaningful to not just me, to my family, to the businesses that I run, the employees that I get to work with. I mean, I literally in my last 10 conversations with different business owners, I met a guy just barely that has just sold his business, not to some private equity, but to his employees in the form of an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan. This is something that I've been studying for 18 months to figure out how I can transition my business in the water well and pump industry, and help create this legacy for these employees that have contributed to building such an incredible business. And that's something that right now I'm passionate about. And the pain is, he's mentioning, the cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars for us to transition it through this method. And I'm like, but in the end, is it going to be worth it? We ask that question, and so we go through this pain, whether it's physical or mental or emotional, monetary. We experience these different pains in this process of creating something that we define as our own glory. And I love what you said in regards to intention, is that if we don't act intentionally, we won't create what we intended to create.
Yeah, I think an ultimate kind of question people can ask themselves is, like when you're 80 years old and you're sitting on the rocking chair, what are the stories that you're wanting to tell to your kids, your grandkids, or people that are around your deathbed, for example? Like, what are the stories that you want to share with them? And very rarely is it going to be, this is how much money I made in 2023, or this is how many doors that I acquired, right? And I think that's kind of the challenge is up front, typically people think of success as like a financial number. Mm-hmm. And once you get to certain levels, what happens is you start to realize like, it actually doesn't change the level of happiness, right? It does. I'm not saying that money's not important. I had a great mentor who said, money is not the most important thing in the world, but it's right up there with oxygen, because it does give you the breathing room, right, to go and live life on your terms. And at the same time, typically what you want to look at is not what's on your resume, like the bullet point items of like, this is what I did in this year or this age. It's the kind of eulogy items. Like, what are people going to say about you when you pass on? And usually it's going to be, what have you done for others, right? Mm-hmm. Not just for yourself. So I think that is something to be intentional around, is like, who do I want people to say I was when I pass on? And that typically comes to, well, I created opportunity or impact or a better lifestyle for other people by the way that I lived. I think just a byproduct of that is more money, right? You mm-hmm. tend to earn more when you start thinking about contribution and how you can support other people on their journey.
And I've heard the arguments of, it's unrighteous to invest. It's, this pursuit of money and otherwise, or the love of money is the root of all evil. Mm. And at the end of the day, like, how is it that I'm going to contribute other than my limited amount of time to a society unless I have something other than my time to contribute? Mm-hmm. If I haven't created something abundant and abundant enough that I can contribute back to the community, the society that I live in, I can only give so much of myself and my time without suffering myself.
Yeah.
However, who can I bless if I've created something of abundance and I have an abundance to where I can contribute to others and help, provide resources to somebody that stands in need.
Yeah.
And I think this abundance mentality is just so healthy, and it's something that we really should focus on, in an effort to create something amazing for ourselves, long down the road.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, being grateful and expressing gratitude
Absolutely.
for those who helped us get there and for what we've created in that meantime.
Yeah, I think it's so important for us to let go of beliefs that don't actually serve us. Like having this belief, this mindset of like people who get to a certain level of financial wealth, or that money is not important, right, is kind of an idea, or all these beliefs in society where like people who have money are greedy or all these things. Like I grew up not having money. So my financial kind of education was like learning what it felt like to have to use food stamps to buy food, right? Mm-hmm. So like I come from this experience where I knew what it was like to get evicted. And so for me, a lot of those initial beliefs around money actually stem from just security. Like I don't want to have my kids experience similar things to what I experienced. So that's kind of base level, is everybody needs to have security just to start thinking about things beyond themselves. Because most people, the challenge is if they're only thinking about I need to put food on my table next week, it's challenging to start thinking about, well, how can I serve? How can I give back? How can I help other people, right? And again, money doesn't solve everything, but it does allow you to start thinking about things that are deeply and truly important to you. And I've had a friend who said that you can give in multiple ways. So sometimes you up front can't give money. Sometimes you can give your time, you can give your leadership, right, to other people. And at the same time, though, money, one of those contributing factors, is something that can actually help other people. One thing that we love doing around the holidays is for Thanksgiving, how many people are out there that are not going to have a meal if somebody else doesn't actually step in and help, right? For Christmas, I was one of those kids where somebody would drop Christmas presents off Otherwise, we would not have had Christmas. So it's like those things for me, I realized that money doesn't change a person, it just amplifies what's already there. And so if you give a person who has a good heart money, they're going to tend to do a lot of good things with that money. And the reverse can also be true, right? And so if people who don't have the right intentions get money, they can do bad things, that's for sure. But it shouldn't stop somebody in the pursuit of getting financial freedom so they can start really just taking complete control of their life.
Yeah. I like how you said, money amplifies what was already there. And that is true. It rings true and true more and more every single day for me.
Yeah.
So I guess what does today look like different from 5 years from now for you, Shoney?
5 years in the future or 5 years in the past?
No, 5 years from now.
5 years from now.
Future. What are you trying to create?
The biggest thing, so my ultimate goal is to have an organization, obviously I'm still in the pursuit complete financial freedom, and in one of my great mentors, Gary Keller, says that true wealth or being rich is just having enough passive income to fund your life mission without having to work. And he's very clear around this, where for some people, if their life mission is, I want to have a family that I'm able to spend time with my kids and give them all their needs, and we're able to have a family vacation every year. And that might require $40,000. Well, by design, if your mission is that, and it only takes $40,000, you can be rich earning $40,000 a year, right? So I think it starts with, what is the ultimate goal? What is the mission that you're called for, or that you're really driven by? So for me, it's feeding hungry kids. So an organization, it's called Food for Thought, that my wife and I are focused on, which is helping kids that are, going back kind of to my childhood, when I was going through challenging times. I was around 13 years old, and my parents, one, just because of their addictions and some of the challenges they were going through, my mom was there physically, but she wasn't there like present, right? And so I realized that a lot of kids that are out there, they're not just hungry physically, they're hungry spiritually, emotionally, mentally as well. And so this organization, we're going to focus on helping kids from a perspective of, let's give those kids in need meals, let's make sure that their base needs are covered, but then let's start teaching them principles. Because that's the only thing my whole life, the trajectory changed because of a mentor. His name's Steve Peterson, completely changed my life, 19 years old. I would be in a very different situation today if he didn't take me under his wing and he taught me these specific principles. But he would say this quote all the time. He'd say, if you treat a man as he is, he'll remain that way. If you treat a man as he could be and ought to be, he'll become who he could be and ought to be. And I didn't understand it at 19 years old, but he was practicing that on me because I had a lot of disempowering beliefs and lifestyles from my upbringing. And in one of the realizations is that teaching people principles can completely alter their future, right? If they decide to go and implement them and install them. And so for me, I want to teach kids about self-development and improvement. Like, I had no clue. My first job was working at McDonald's, and somebody else said, you're worth $6.55 an hour, right? Somebody else put a price tag on me. And it wasn't until Steve Peterson helped me to realize, like, I actually can develop skill sets, and I can claim what an hour of my life is worth. I can actually decide that on my own. And so simple things like that, where we want to start with these younger kids and help them to understand, teach them about the power of positive thinking, about mindset, about growing skill sets, right, that are valuable to the marketplace, and all these different places, things that can help them to get out of their circumstances.
Yeah. Food for thought. We got to find the link, and we want to put that out there. I love that you've gone through, more than just food, mental, emotional. Yeah. And I was actually having a conversation today. We put a date in December when we want to do a mastermind with kids.
Awesome. And
with juniors and seniors, starting there.
Yeah.
Just so that they're thinking outside the box that they may have been formed. Mm-hmm. Like, let's talk about for real, like, what it is that they want to do and how they're going to create. They're young and they're ready and they're energetic. And yeah. I remember when I was 16, 18, 20, 22 years old, like, the energy was all there. Like,
yep.
and I just needed a direction to go, and I was headed there fast.
For sure.
And I think that if I could have sat in a conversation like this, first of all, congratulations, and I love your pursuit of success, and
Thank you.
First of all, I mean, in your intellect and what you've developed and what you've created, and despite the circumstances and what you said, and what an inspiring story to come from. And the pain is temporary, glory is forever. And,
For sure.
And what you're creating for
Yes.
your family is absolutely inspiring. That security, that place of safety, and then for you to be reaching out to others in food for thought and other ways.
Yeah.
What an amazing opportunity that you've been given, and really a blessing to be able to bless others' lives.
Yeah.
Where much is given, much is required.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
Well, Shoney, thanks for the conversation
For
today,
sure.
and really enjoyed being able to catch up. Again, we met a few months ago. I was inspired by Shoney then, and we've talked, in between then and now, and just felt like, what, there's more stories to tell about people who have been able to break out of what could have been a mold and create their own future.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you, Colter.
Thanks, Shoney.
Yeah.